Chat, welcome to Bygone Blunders. This is a segment by Slender Ender Guy, who made the Thalassophobic Curiosities. Yes, that's how you say that. And this is a segment that is kind of about dinosaurs and fossils. Kind of. I'll explain. Hello, Vinny in chat. Allow me to take you all back to the past during a time when we were starting to learn about fossils and ancient life. We had no clue what the hell a dinosaur was. Whenever we found a fossil belonging to something we'd never seen before, all we could do was theorize and guess as to what it could be and how it would have lived back then. And of course, most of the time, these hypotheses will be incorrect and eventually be corrected over time with the introduction of advanced tools and practices. Now, you're all going to listen to your favorite Italian New Yorker read and talk about some of the most well-known early fossil reconstructions. Here's the criteria. This pack contains inaccurate fossil reconstructions from the past, ranging from well-known to downright absurd. I've also added 3 composite reconstructions as a bonus. There's quite a bit to read, given the history involved, but thankfully there are only 16 entries instead of God knows how many I included in the Thalassophobic Curiosity segment a couple months ago. This will be on the test, absolutely. The exams are coming up. Study. Memorize. Absorb nothing, just memorize information. Tyrannosaurus Rex and others. Now, I want you to take a moment to reflect on a certain point in your childhood. When you were a young kid in kindergarten or preschool, you or a classmate were drawing dinosaurs. How did you or your classmate depict them? Did you draw them standing upright with their tails dragging along the ground? Well, if you did, I've got some news for you. During the early 1900s, almost everyone went with the idea that all biped dinosaurs, including some quadrupeds, stood upright with an erect posture, like us, and used their tails to support themselves like a kangaroo. They're even theorized to have kicked like kangaroos. So the most famous example is a T-Rex. Old art pieces depict them this way and made them appear more like uncanny cryptids sometimes. You'll see in the next slide. Years down the line, they would be depicted with a posture similar to an old man with a bad back or a stereotypical gamer. Hey, just like the example on the right. Today, nearly every bipedal dinosaur we have discovered has horizontal posture, like today's birds. Oh my god. Yeah, that feels weird. That just feels like really upright. Is this supposed to be an animation? It says animation. Yeah, it's supposed to be an animation. Well. Keep clicking. What, like... Did it not work? I don't think the animations are working. Aquatic duck dinosaur. It's a PowerPoint, that's why. Animation just means transition. Wait, so is this correct, Slender Ender? Sorry to interrupt the segment with this, but I just want to make sure everything's going smoothly. Is this supposed to be an empty segment? Oh my god. That dinosaur. Okay, everything's good? Alright, just checking. Okay, because it's saying, like, animation. I freaked out. That is a gormless dinosaur. I don't know if Jurassic Park would have been as good if this is what Spielberg was depicting. Just not as scary as what we got. Oh my god. Those little freaks. See, now this we need in a video game. Like, I want to fight these things. They're so weird. And yeah, ones that don't look like they should be standing upright are just standing upright. I want to show you with the laser pointer who my favorite is. My favorite is probably... I like this guy, but I'm also a fan of this guy. Okay, you'll see here the arms are, like, comically tiny. I mean, that's just insane. The poor dinosaur. This one's looking kind of chunky, too. I mean, this one's a little bit more like what we think of a T-Rex, but it's just, I don't know, there's some funny like stuff there. The arms are weird. It's just the posture is weird. But he's cheeky. I thought he was looking at me funny. Like with his side eye. Like, oh yes, you like this. Not that I know what an actual dinosaur's posture looks like. We can only speculate or postulate. Those are, I mean, it's kind of tough to tell, but they're cool. Kicking like kangaroos. Oh, here you go. You can probably imagine how this body plan inspired some monsters from older monster movies, like the original Godzilla and other monsters from similar movies. Speaking of older movies, there's a kaiju from the Toho movie King Kong Escapes, named Gorosaurus, who takes on this body plan to the fullest extent. Even his signature attack is a kangaroo kick, just like how the T-Rex was theorized to do it. Totally not on a wire. Just able to do that. Just can defy gravity like that and just kick. Man, I love this. This is great. The Brontosaurus. First discovered by Othniel Charles Marsh in 1879. He called the fossil the thunder lizard from Wyoming, which fucking rocks. This sauropod was one of the biggest land animals during its time and was one of the heaviest to ever live. During the late 19th century, paleontologists believed that this dinosaur was just too damn heavy and would collapse under its own immense girth. To try and figure out how they can stand, paleontologists theorized that the Brontosaurus, as well as some other sauropods, were semi-aquatic. Some even classified them as being fully aquatic. It was believed that they lived exclusively in bodies of water deep enough to support their weight. Paleontologists would finally consider them to be fully terrestrial. In the 1970s, after enough evidence was gathered to disprove the aquatic theory completely, like the types of pollen and plants that were preserved near their remains. I mean, I like how it was easier to just assume that they were like water creatures as opposed to, you know, standing on all fours and it's just fine. But I mean, they are huge. These are fucking massive creatures. They just made shit up. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's what we had to do. Someone in chat said, is this Turok 2 music where the dinosaurs eat each other out? It's a really interesting way to say that. Chat member, this is Turok 1 music, where the dinosaurs eat each other out, okay? Megalosaurus and Iguanodon. Imagine being a balding man in the mid-1800s named William Buckland. Okay, give me a minute, let me think. Alright. You were given the task of reconstructing a creature from the remains you have never seen before. Not knowing what the hell it is, how would you reconstruct it? What do you think it would have looked like when it was alive? Well, that was William's task. Little did he know the fossil he found in Stonesfield, Oxfordshire, would be an incredibly significant discovery, and it would change science forever. Did the face move? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the face move a little bit. What the fuck? Was that me? Wait, who is that? Is that Mike? It's Mike. Megalosaurus. William did not find the first known dinosaur fossil, but the fossil he found would lead to the first dinosaur to ever be described and named in 1824. The first ever fossil was discovered by Robert Plot back in 1677, but he thought it belonged to a giant human, or a Sataniel. He named the creature Megalosaurus, meaning giant lizard. He theorized that it was 25 feet long, quadrupedal amphibian that closely resembled a giant lizard. In 1822, a woman named Mary Ann Mantell discovered fossilized teeth, and her geologist husband, Gideon Mantell, said that they resembled iguana teeth, but much larger. The reconstruction of this dinosaur would be very similar to the Megalosaurus reconstruction. It would be named Iguanodon in 1825, making it the second dinosaur to officially be identified. Both dinosaurs were theorized to be great creatures like those described in mythology or religious texts. But years later, both reconstructions of the dinosaurs would be disproven. Like, this is very funny to me. Today, the Megalosaurus is now known as a carnivorous theropod, just like the T-Rex, with a height of roughly 10 feet and a length of 30 feet. And the Iguanodon is now known as an herbivorous ornithopod. Dinosaurs which are primarily quadruped but can walk bipedally short distances, the height of around 15 feet and a length somewhere between 30 to 36 feet long. The legacy of these dinosaurs when they were first discovered is still strong to this day. There are statues located in Crystal Palace Park in southeast London depicting the Megalosaurus and the Iguanodon when they were first described. Just made up, just a creature, just some fake-ass creatures. Still got statues of them around to this day. It makes sense, though. I mean, again, you just find bones and you just gotta figure shit out. Vinny's really got to stop doing these reading heavy segments at the end of the night. He's lulling himself to sleep. Not lulling myself to sleep, just trying my best to keep the energy up. But you're probably right. Elasmosaurus. Elasmosaurus? The first fossil belonging to this marine reptile was originally discovered by Theophilus Hunt Turner in 1867. That is the most 1867 name I've ever heard. But it was officially named and described by a paleontologist with an unfortunate name, Edward Drinker Cope, in 1868. That sucks. This was one of the largest plesiosaurs to ever exist. They reached lengths of up to 46 feet long from head to tail, and their necks alone measured around 23 feet long. Plesiosaurs are technically not dinosaurs. They belong to a lineage of marine reptiles that diverged from dinosaurs long ago. And this is the face of a man who frequently copes. When Cope was reconstructing the fossil, he placed the skull at the tip of its tail instead of at the end of its long neck. Oh my god. The reason he believed that it had a short neck and a long tail was because of his former expertise. Cope was formerly an expert on modern reptiles, mainly lizards. And we know that lizards today are seen with short necks and long tails. Cope would later be criticized by a man that I mentioned earlier, whose name is also, who's also his rival, Othniel Charles Marsh. We need more Othniels around these days. If anyone's going to have a kid, name it Othniel, please. Cope would fuck things up by beginning a decades-long feud with Marsh. Everyone who's interested in their feud would call it the Bone Wars. Yeah, they made a movie called The Bone Wars, too, but you can't go see that unless you're at a specific theater. Therizinosaurus. That is a crazy image. The first fossils were discovered in the Gobi Desert by a joint Soviet-Mongolian fossil expedition in 1948, but would later be officially described and named by Soviet paleontologist Evgeny Meliv in 1954. These giants are truly the stuff of nightmares. They grew up to be around 33 feet tall and possess massive claws that can be a meter long or even as long as a person. They're also classified as theropods. Theropods are in the clade Theropoda, which also include the T-Rex and Megalosaurus. However, unlike most theropods, these dinosaurs ate plant matter instead of meat. According to recent studies, their claws were really never used for combat since they're apparently somewhat fragile. They were mainly used to grab at vegetation that was within reach. Imagine that, people thinking you like hard and shit, and then you just grabbing vegetable. Originally, these dinosaurs were never thought of as forest-dwelling giants. Out of all the ancient life Meliv believed the Therizinosaurus to be, he theorized it to be a gargantuan turtle due to its claws. He theorized that they used their giant claws to swipe at and harvest seaweed. About 2 decades later, paleontologists started throwing around the idea that this dinosaur was a theropod, and over time their theory would be proven correct as more fossils were uncovered. Nah, it's a turtle, mate. A fucking turtle. Trust me, it's got claws like a turtle. No, really, mate, it's fucking killer. It's got it fights with its claws and it's a turtle. It's not even the right accent. I don't even know what that... Stegosaurus. That doesn't look right. While the first specimen was officially described in 1874 by a man named Richard Owen, that's an easy name, the first species of Stegosaurus was discovered in 1877 in the Rocky Mountains by our friend Othniel Charles Marsh and his team. This guy doesn't stop. These well-armed herbivores were usually 12 feet tall and 21 to 30 feet long on average. These dinosaurs are pretty well known due to their signature back plates. There are many theories as to what the function of these plates may be, but the popular theories are that they either regulate body heat or that they are used to impress potential mates. They also possess large spikes at the ends of their tails, which can be used as defensive weapons. That's like one of the coolest things I read about when I was a kid. And just that alone was enough for me to become obsessed with dinosaurs for a while, where I was like, holy shit, they use their tails as a weapon like a mace or like a morning star. I bet that's so sick when they fight a T-Rex. It's like, did they even exist at the same time? When Marsh reconstructed the fossil in 1884, he depicted the Stegosaurus as a bipedal creature instead of a quadruped, who's dragged its tail along the ground and used it as support, like kangaroos. He also theorized that it had a second brain at the base of its tail due to its brain case being rather small. Again, just making shit up. A lot of paleontologists back then believed in this two-brain theory, and it was believed that the second brain was used to help coordinate movement for some reason. Of course, that theory would be debunked later. I mean, they're doing their best. You know what? These are our ancestors, and they tried. Hallucigenia. One of the most bizarre creatures we have discovered. The first fossil was initially discovered in the Burgess Shale in 1911 by a paleontologist named Charles Doolittle. What is squirting on my screen right now? A paleontologist named Charles Doolittle Walcott, but it was later re-examined and named by English paleontologist Simon Conway Morris in 1977. Scientists and paleontologists are still debating what this could be. It was originally thought of as an ancestor of the tardigrade, or water bear, but for now it seems like most have settled on classifying this thing as the ancestor of Onychophorans, or as we commonly call them, velvet worms. Much easier. Of course, that would change sometime in the future with more research. And yes, the velvet worm literally shoots ropes at its prey. Not as in baby batter, but as in adhesive slime that can dry and act as a type of glue. This thing was originally described as having rigid spines that were used as legs, tentacles lining its back to help obtain food, a tail, and a dark blob that was thought of as an oversized head. It was later discovered that we've been studying it upside down. The spine legs are just spines lining its back, and the tentacles are the legs. The blob was still an enigma during the time, though. Interesting. I like the visual here is very interesting. Eventually, paleontologists figured out that the tail was actually the neck and head. Two simple pinprick eyes were found towards the end, as well as a mouth and tiny teeth lining its throat. As for the blob, it was neither a head or some bizarre form of tail. Turns out that it was either the creature's entrails or bodily fluids that had expelled during its death or decay. Oh, fuck. That's so weird. And they were just like, yeah, no, that's part of it. And it was just like poop. Compsognathus. Jurassic Park's favorite puppy-sized dino. Oh, Compy. Its fossil was found in France during 1971 and appears to be a somewhat larger version of the first Compy fossil that was discovered in Germany in 1859. Turok 2 had Compies. You had to fight them with your knife, usually. It would be proposed that this specimen was part of a newly discovered species, Compsognathus coralistris. I like how the graphic in the bottom right is from the Lost World Jurassic Park film. The best Jurassic Park movie. No, it's not. Some good moments, though. Its fossil was more or less accurate when reconstructed. However, it was theorized that this species was semi-aquatic instead of being terrestrial, possessing webbed fingers or toes to help it swim. Some even claimed that its hands were just straight-up flippers. Later, paleontologists figured out that it was just a larger instance of the first fossil, Compy. Long pipes. Longipes. Longipes? So in the end, this proposed semi-aquatic species never really existed. It was just long. Pterosaur. It's actually a pterosaur. The first known fossil of a pterosaur, Pterodactylus, was discovered in Germany in 1784 and would be later officially described by Italian naturalist Cosimo Alessandro Collini. Oh, say it with the musica. This would be an incredibly significant discovery, since this fossil would be what confirmed the existence of the order that consists of flying reptiles, and the order would be named after the fossil. But it was originally believed that the Pterodactylus weren't capable of flight. Collini rejected the idea of them being able to fly together. There's going to be a twofer, since there's two bizarre yet unique reconstructions of this creature. Collini believed that these were aquatic creatures. His evidence to back up the claim was that the wings were actually large flippers to help propel them through water. Oh, they thought this thing was a water creature? That thing at the top is fucked up. That's like long turtle arms. It would then later be theorized by other paleontologists that they were amphibious, splitting their time between water and land. Eventually, in 1800, a man named Johann Hermann proposed the idea that they were able to fly and were not aquatic. He even compared them to bats, and this is the theory he would stick with. He theorized that the Pterodactylus was a marsupial-like mammal that was able to fly thanks to an oversized finger on each arm that would connect to the feet by membranes. The first sketch makes it look like a wretched homunculus. I'm glad we got the flying reptile over those abominations. Be grateful for the smoking caterpillar, chat. If it wasn't here, Vinny and all of you would have been exposed. Later, a French naturalist named Georges Cuvier would correct the mistake and officially classify it as a flying reptile. Thank God for that. And also for the smoking caterpillar. It's pronounced Jaj. No, it's George's. Spinosaurus. This entry is just as controversial as today's politics. I'm exaggerating, obviously, since paleontologists are still debating and trying to figure out what this dinosaur would have looked like back then. One thing's for sure, it would have had feathers. The first partial remains of a Spinosaurus were discovered in Egypt during 1912 and would later be officially described by German paleontologist Ernst Stromer von Reichenbach. You know, I can't quite place that name. Maybe, I don't know, someone from Australia? The bones would be put on display in a museum in Munich, but in 1944, during World War II, they were tragically destroyed during a bombing run conducted by the British Royal Air Force. God damn it. I would make a British Air Force joke, but I can't think of one that's legitimately funny. I'll leave that up to you, chat. I don't know enough about the British Air Force's reputation to make a joke about the British Air Force. But, yeah, this is pretty crazy. I don't know if that's what they're assuming it looked like a long time ago or if it's more recent, but we'll see. Stormer theorized that this dinosaur stood bipedally and used its tail as support, like literally almost every other dinosaur at the time. I like that one on the top left. It looks like its existence is pain. Over the years, new ideas would come to the table challenging the theory or dethroning it, only to be challenged and or dethroned by other new theories as new bones or fossils were discovered, including a skull. Eventually, during 1997, Professor Jack Bowman Bailey had a new take on the dinosaur. He theorized that it moved on all fours and had a large hump on its back. As of today, the Spinosaurus is depicted as a nearly quadrupedal theropod with a uniquely shaped sail on its back and spent most of the time hunting and wading through the water. So you can see the evolution of it. By the time we hit 2020, it's in the water. 1915, it's just like it just doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it should be doing that. Honestly, for a couple years. Just fascinating. I mean, and also there's probably stuff we're convinced, not that we're convinced, but there's probably stuff that we, you know, have tried to figure out, but how can we? You can only go so far. So here's what it looked like, I guess, in different media. Turok? Is that from the Turok comic? Because we're listening to the Turok soundtrack, but did Turok start in the 60s? Wow. Halstead, is that I don't know, are these all dinosaur movies? Well, Jurassic Park 3. I watched Jurassic Park 3 semi-recently. Not all of it. Just a little bit. It's not amazing. It's kind of okay. I like it. I like some of it. It's just dumb and just some good dinosaurs. That's pretty much it. And then, yeah, then there's the raptor that turns like Alan. It says Alan's name. They're paleontologists, not movies. Oh, I thought there was a movie called White. Turok is from the mid-50s. So you got a mix of paleontologists here and also movies, right? So, because Jurassic Park 3 is not a paleontologist. The movie Paul, is that the Seth Rogen alien movie? I think it's Seth Rogen. Is it? Or is it Simon Pegg? Did they have a scene where they went back to the past? Dinosaur. Woodwardopterus. I would like to issue a slight arachnophobia warning, since this does go into spider territory. No, it's good. Exposure therapy. You must look the spider in the eyes. The first fossil was discovered in 1980 in the... Is that Bajo de Veliz Formation of San Luis, Argentina, by paleontologist Mario Hunican. He theorized that the fossil belonged to a large ancient spider, one that would have disproven everything we already knew about spiders. It would later be given the name Megarachne, meaning giant spider. People fell in love with the idea that this abomination existed, and at one point, for some reason, I don't know why I said that like that, I became Skeletor for a second. Museum displays would be made, as well as having cameos in some documentaries and other forms of media. Shelob from Lord of the Ring. In 2005, a second fossil was found, and this time it was in better shape. But even though it looked exactly like the first fossil, there were some features that belonged to a completely different genus of extinct animal altogether. When comparing their findings to previously identified fossils, they managed to match them with something that had already been classified. It was a spitting image of a Eurypterid. It was a spitting image of a Eurypterid, or sea scorpion, called the Woodwardopterus. So thankfully, the giant predatory spider of ancient times never existed. I see. It do be looking like a spider. I kind of understand. But thankfully that would have sucked. Also, dinosaur names. God. That's why the Tyrannosaurus Rex, I think, is also kind of popular, is because the name is fun to say. Mosasaur. The first fossil, a skull, was found in 1764 in a limestone quarry near the Netherlands by a Dutch surgeon named Johann Hoffmann. These aquatic reptiles were some of the largest predators to ever patrol the oceans. They usually grew somewhere between 39 and 46 feet long. There have been even some estimates reaching 56 feet long. In some pieces of media, their sizes were greatly exaggerated, sometimes being the size of a fucking kaiju. At first, the fossil was misidentified as a whale skull. It would later be theorized that this aquatic reptile was fully terrestrial lizard, akin to a giant monitor lizard. Funnily enough, years after they were correctly classified as being fully aquatic, it it was discovered that their relatives were terrestrial reptiles. Over time, they transitioned to live in the water. You can see that evolution, how they went from that to that. Man, the devil did a real good job with these things. Left a lot of evidence around and shit. Mammoth. In 1728, British naturalist Sir Hans Sloane discovered sparse remains belonging to an animal that closely resembles an elephant. These would end up being the first scientific studies describing a mammoth. Eventually, in 1799, a nearly complete specimen, complete with fur and tissue, was found at the Lena River Delta in Siberia and would later be recovered by Russian botanist Mikhail Adams and his team. Mikhail Arms. That's funny. Mikhail Adams and his team. During the time between discovery and recovery, wildlife in the area ate away at nearly all the soft tissue that was still present. What was left of the remains, including the mostly intact skeleton, were sent to St. Petersburg. The skeleton is still on display today. That's cool. I think they have one at the Natural History Museum in New York, too. But I don't believe there's any, mammoth meat available to try there. Because I'm pretty sure people have eaten mammoth meat, like defrosted mammoth meat at this point. And that's, I hate to say it, but that's one of the few things I think about when I think of a mammoth, is people defrosting mammoth meat and fucking trying it. Oh God. Even with the tissue samples that were recovered and having an understanding that it's a relative to modern-day elephants, its earliest depictions looked nothing like an elephant. That is absolutely disgusting. I love it. It does look like a boar mixed with an elephant. It was depicted as a pitiful creature with an elephant-like body, barely had a neck, no trunk, tiny ears that were at the top of the head, and eyes that were close to the top of its head as well. It looks like some bastardized animal that you'd see in a medieval painting. Freak weirdo, excellent, says a chat member. I agree. That's just swell. Could you imagine? I know the mammoth is extinct, right? But the collective spirit of all the mammoth that have ever existed, and they just like gain sentience, and one day they just happen across this, and they're like, it's a good thing we're dead. Sorry, I get weird at 2 in the morning, almost 1 in the morning. Composite fossils. Fossils that are made up of incomplete specimens or pieces from completely different specimens. Most of the time, they were made on purpose, especially for financial gain. Oh. These final 3 entries are classified as bone amalgamations, and it's easy to understand why they're called such. Wow. The Magdeburg Unicorn. That is fucked up. The woolly rhino would be officially described by Peter Simon Pallas in 1769, thanks to the remains he found during an exhibition in Siberia, but there were remains that were discovered much earlier. In 1663, the partial remains of a woolly rhino were discovered in Quedlinburg, Germany. Turns out that a skull belonging to woolly rhino was found in Austria during 1335, but it was theorized that the skull belonged to a dragon during that time. Local mayor named Otto von Guericke, who was also a physicist, got a hold of the remains and defiled them, creating what is considered to be the worst fossil reconstruction in history. Oh my God. I put a hand over my mouth. That's how fucked up that is. I actually physically had a reaction to this image. It was believed Otto would slap on one pair of skeletal legs belonging to a mammoth and the tusk of a narwhal onto the rhino's skull and spine, according to some papers that documented this thing's existence. Only a handful of documents and 2 pictures detailing the reconstruction are the only pieces of evidence that were ever discovered. Today, you can find a replica at the Museum of Natural History, Magdeburg, in Magdeburg, Germany. Yeah, that's like, exactly, that's a spore creation. If this dude, Otto, just had spore, he could have just not done that. He would have got his demons out in a video game. The Missouri Leviathan. During 1840, a farmer found large bones belonging to an American mastodon on his property in Missouri and made the request for someone to come and inspect the remains. Side note, did anyone else ever find it, like, just weird that there would be dinosaur bones in America? Because it's just a thing in my brain. I think maybe from watching Jurassic Park. I know the answer is no. But when I was a kid... Okay, chat, everyone's typing no. When I was a kid, I thought dinosaurs were in some exotic land overseas. And I thought America just, like, why? I was like, why would there be dinosaurs in America? It doesn't make sense. And then, as obviously, when I turned, like, 8, I was like, oh, of course they're here. But for a while, I just pictured dinosaurs as not being in America. It just didn't make sense to me. Carrying on. Sorry, you know, we were all kids once. We all had some dumb thoughts. You know, some of us are dumb adults too. A man named Albert C. Koch would quickly, and you know how I know there's dumb adults. This guy. A man named Albert C. Koch would quickly obtain the rights to excavate the remains from the farmer's property, but he would soon discover that there are remains belonging to several other American mastodons. There's one problem regarding Albert's Koch. He was what you would call a showman, but in reality he was a con artist, and he's been known to tamper with the remains of ancient life to create monsters just to make a quick buck. Albert added several extra vertebrae to the spine and placed wood blocks between each vertebrae to make it longer, added extra ribs, and turned the tusks sideways when they were installed. He claimed that the creature was aquatic, hence the name, and would use its sideways-facing tusks to hook onto underwater branches. And yes, me and many other people have no fucking idea what he meant by underwater branches. Yeah, I was about to say, what? His exhibit was a success, and he toured the country with the amalgamation, eventually ending in London, where the fossil would be bought off of him, by a man named Richard Owen. Owen would fix the fossil and put it on display at the Hintz Hall in London, where it still resides today. Wow. Good job, Richard Owen. Chad. The Beta Crotch versus the Chad Owen description of the Missourium. Hydrarchos. The Basilosaurus is not a dinosaur or aquatic reptile, but a large prehistoric whale, meaning it is indeed a mammal. It measured around 56 to 66 feet long, and it estimated to weigh, I don't know, girthy 15 metric tons. The first fossil belonging to these leviathans would be discovered in Louisiana in 1832 and would be officially described in 1834. But in 1845, our friend Albert Koch managed to get his hands on the rights to excavate not one, but multiple specimens. You can easily imagine what he did with the remains. This fucking guy again? Albert would combine the vertebrae and ribs to create an absurdly long creature resembling a mythological sea serpent. He had made 2 of these things. That's how much he had excavated. The first one was recorded being 114 feet long. even though he claimed it was 140 feet long, even lying about that. And he would eventually sell it to the Prussian king, Friedrich Wilhelm IV. The second one was around 96 feet long and was paraded around the United States before being sold to Colonel Wood's Museum in Chicago in 1848. Excuse me. During 1871, devastating fire would ravage Chicago, and the Colonel Wood Museum would be one of the many buildings to be incinerated. And along with the museum, the second specimen would be destroyed. Note, I was not able to find what Friedrich Wilhelm IV did with the first specimen, or what the fate of it is. But yeah, you can get an idea. That's crazy. The first image says, "It is little wonder then why this great creature failed to continue its lineage. With no ears, it could not sustain a top hat upon its head, and thereby expired from the lack of common dignity." That's funny. Man, our ancestors were kind of funny, huh? But listen, this con man, Crotch, I'll give him credit. It's an audacious and kind of brilliant and brilliantly scummy idea to just like kit bash a bunch of fucking bones together into a sea serpent and then just make a ton of money and selling this shit to kings. And he got away with it twice too, this fuck. Wow. Do not neglect seeing the truly extraordinary exhibition now open in Niblo's garden during the fair. The Hydrarchos, Leviathan of the antediluvian world, as described in the book of Job, chapter 41. What? 4,000 pounds. Crazy. Well, I hope that was not too much reading for you in chat. I wanted to see if using a slideshow would be a preferred method showcasing the information and media instead of how I originally did it for the Thalassophobic Curiosity segment. The answer is yes. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this segment. I hope you all learned something from it. I had fun working on this since there was some history involved that I had never heard about. Before Vinny moves on to the next segment or gives his closing thoughts, there's two people I would like to thank for helping me with some parts of this segment. Person number one, Steven Spielberg. I want to thank my friend Battery Master for helping me find some fossil reconstructions I'd never seen or heard of. He's well versed in this subject. I can't thank him enough. And lastly, I'd like to give a huge shout out to the legendary researcher, artist, and author of All Tomorrows, great, C.M. Kosman, for creating the Vine Shroom for this segment. I highly recommend checking out his other works. There you go. No. I think it's just modified from that. Right? Huh? Kosman is like 200 years old? Wait, can you explain this? Slender Ender guy? He's 40? So did you commission this? He's alive and he posts on Twitter regularly. Oh. Slender just said that they commissioned it. That's cool. Wow. Thank you for that. That's really awesome. All Tomorrows is incredible, by the way. We covered that a little bit, didn't we? Like some of the creatures, we looked into that. Or did we not? I don't remember. I know we covered some future creature, speculative creature things, but I don't know if we did All Tomorrows. So I'm looking at it now. Oh yeah, we did. I'm looking through it now. Yes, we covered this. the bottom right. Wait, what's going on over here? Anyway, thank you for touring the new exhibit. That is awesome, and that's just the icing on the cake. By the way, the Turok soundtrack ended just then, at that exact moment. Chat, you cannot plan timing like that. That was perfect. Well, I have a couple of closing thoughts. Number one, that was cool. I like dinosaurs. I like learning about weird history. That was a really good cross-section of just weird stuff that humans do and dinosaurs. I like that. When I was growing up, I had these dinosaur books. I think I've talked about this on stream. Some of you might remember them. They were just called Dinosaurs, and they came with 3D glasses, the blue and red ones, and you could see the dinosaurs in 3D. So I really enjoyed that. And of course, I saw Jurassic Park in the theater, and it scared the shit out of me. It was a very, very scary movie. Not that it was particularly like a horror movie, but it had, the fucking T-Rex scene. It was like visceral. It was like a viscerally real movie to watch at the age of, I don't know, what was I? I guess I was 9. So, but yeah, that was definitely one of the theater experiences of my life, because that was at the point where I was just starting to understand like more complex movies like that, as opposed to just cartoons and, like simpler stuff. And then, yeah, I guess I was 8, maybe 8, was it 93? So yeah, 8. And I was really getting into like dinosaurs, so I had books, I had, rented dinosaur video games. Most of them weren't great. So yeah, it was like a pretty big thing for me. Not enough that I wanted to become a paleontologist or anything, but it was still pretty cool. And there were some decent-ish dinosaur games. I want to stream Evo on the Super Nintendo one day. That game fucking kicks ass. But also Turok. Not the squad-based multiplayer shooter Turok that's coming out, but like the original Turok games. 1, 2, and kind of 3. They're just fun because you could learn about dinosaurs while you're shooting them in the face. It was fun. So, yeah. Dinosaurs are cool. And reconstructing, like, fossils and just trying to figure out what the fuck you're looking at. Like, I think it's really neat that we were able to find out as much about these creatures as we did at all. Like, it's kind of baffling that we even have any information about what they might have been like. So when, I'm kind of reading about how they reconstructed them and speculated they might be standing upright. Yeah, I mean, that kind of doesn't surprise me too much. Though I enjoyed seeing the ones they got really wrong. There were some really funny ones in there, so. Anyway, thank you, Slender. And thank you, chat. Now, there's a chat member said, Vinny, would you be interested in a bird educational segment? I like birds. I'm somewhat interested in educational segments on birds. Here's the thing. I think for a Sunday stream, and people have already made packs that I haven't done, and I'm so sorry for that. If you spent a long time working on a Sunday stream thing, submit.vinesauce.com, resubmit it. I'll maybe try to get in touch with an email or something, or send an email, remind me. It helps. However, trying to find the right balance of what's interesting for Sunday stream, as well as what might be educational for an hour. And also, yes, that's the perfect length. And 1 hour for an educational segment, perfect. I think birds are interesting, but I don't know if they're like that interesting for a Sunday stream. And I also don't know if, I'm just not sure if that's something that would keep everyone's attention or my own as well. PowerPoint slides work better. And the way this was formatted was perfect. It was just not overwhelming. Everything was easy to read, and there's plenty of visuals. It was great. So that helps. But the other thing too is like I kind of want to do more stuff on like aliens and weird creatures that people think they saw and unexplainable stuff and just weird phenomenon and stuff like that. Like that is phenomena. Sorry. That stuff is, I think, more interesting to me as the streamer. And I noticed that stuff that kind of thing, or like even like bizarre deep sea life or deep sea mysteries. I just find that stuff really interesting. I like learning about stuff that we can't really fully learn about. It really kind of activates the brain. And but that said, though, also learning about real stuff that we have information on could be interesting. It just has to be formatted to be interesting. Like weather was cool. But anyway, that'll be it. I'm open to ideas. If you go to submit.vinesauce.com or you send an email, you're like, Vinny, I have an idea. Here's an example of what I mean. This kind of thing could be cool because I would include this. And if you intrigue me, I'd be like, oh, make a pack on that. Yeah. So please don't leave these educational segments for when you're tired or sleepy. Well, I think you can tell I was awake and I enjoyed it. And I was really engaged with this segment tonight. I might have screwed up a few words, but I definitely enjoyed it and I was present for it. I agree that it sucks to do a segment like this when I'm tired, but it also fits so well at the end of the stream. And also, I'm trying to think of what the audience would be like, what works for a Sunday stream. I'm thinking maybe I'll try one second to last in a future day. We'll see. But it is a little tough. Yeah, if it's more than an hour, I start to go crazy. And if it's like too much reading, I can definitely get a little bit tripped up. So, all right. Well, chat, hey, thank you. Thank you everyone for submitting Sunday stream stuff, for helping out on the stream in any way. Just being here, just hanging out, watching, listening. It means a lot to this day. And I will continue. Also, tomorrow, more than likely, tomorrow I will be streaming some more stuff like I don't know, maybe Subnautica, maybe Tamagotchi, maybe Killer Bean. I don't know. Good night, everyone. This week, only Tuesday, I will be doing an early stream. Every other day will be normal, I believe. Goodbye.